go ahead, since we do have quite a few people on this call, remind everybody how it's going to run. First of all, Rachel and I will act as moderators of the event, and we'll keep an eye out for questions. So if you do have a question for any of our panelists, please feel free to leave that in the chat box, and we'll get those asked at the end of the presentations. I'd also like to go ahead and recognize our sponsor for this afternoon's luncheon, and that is EECU. They are inside of the Granbury HEB. They are open now and ready to serve you. And if you've been watching any of the slides, you'll notice that they have several promotions going on right now, including saving $50 off per month on your auto payment, scholarship application that is very interesting. There is a EECU Community Foundation scholarship as well. And then they actually have a free shred day for Hood County residents coming up on January 23rd. So we will also post links to all of these at the bottom of Facebook Live so you can read more information. Since we have an amazing group of panelists this morning, I'm going to go ahead and get us started. I'm going to give each panelist time to introduce themselves and present their information. And we're going to go ahead and start with Adriana Cruz, who is the Executive Director of Economic Development and Tourism for the Office of Governor Greg Abbott. Adriana, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
I'll remember to unmute myself. Thank you so much, Maureen, and to the rest of the Granbury Chamber of Commerce. Appreciate the invitation to join you today and to give you an update on what's going on at our office and what's going on at the state level in terms of economic development and tourism. Governor Abbott appointed me to this position last December 2019. So I've been in the position for a year and a month. And 4 months into the position was when the pandemic hit. And so what a year it has been, but it's an incredible honor to lead the state's economic development efforts. And I have a presentation prepared for you, so I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to share my screen. Let's make sure that I did this appropriately. I hope you're seeing my presentation. So we'll get started and just kind of fill you in on the activities at the governor's office. Oh, there we go. We'll move this forward. So our office, our mission is to positively impact the economic prosperity of the state of Texas. And we do this a number of ways. We market and promote Texas as a premier business location and tourism destination. We work with community partners to facilitate new jobs and investment across the state. We administer the state's incentive programs. We provide business assistance for our Texas companies that are looking to export and are exploring international markets. We serve as a central location for economic research. And then we also put together strategies for our workforce development systems, and also for, for our industry sectors, and to make sure that our state industries continue to grow. And these are the 6 divisions that are part of the office. Of course, business and community development, that's the one that works with companies that are considering relocating, and our existing companies. I'll talk about that in a minute. Our economic development finance team oversees the state incentives. The Workforce Investment Council works with our workforce development partners and develops the statewide strategy for workforce development. The Texas Music Office and the Texas Film Commission work with our creative industries to make sure that they continue to grow. And then, of course, tourism. Travel Texas is the division that handles tourism for the state of Texas. And works with the Convention and Visitors Bureaus and our other attractions and our partners across the state. So a little bit about business and community development. This is the group that works with those corporations that are considering relocating out of the state and relocating into the state, but also works with our existing companies, large and small. Our small business office is part of this group, as is our business and permitting office. So economic research, marketing, promotion, and international trade all make up this division. The Office of Small Business Assistance, as you can imagine, this year has been incredibly busy as small businesses were impacted so tremendously with COVID-19. But this is the group that provides resources, information, and education to our small businesses and entrepreneurs on how they can start and grow and sustain their small businesses. And they put together resources like the Small Business Handbook, but also put together events like the Governor's Small Business Series. Those are in-person events that we do across the state. We do about 15 of them a year. This year, of course, we couldn't do in-person events, and so we shifted to do webinars. And those webinars far exceeded our expectations and what we thought folks would be participating in. We had about more than 20,000 small businesses register and attend those webinars. And we covered everything from, you know, the PPP, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, to e-commerce and online presence, and how small businesses can market themselves in this very unprecedented year. And then the Business Permit Office, this might be something of interest to some of your members. We have a permit officer that works with businesses of all sizes to help navigate Texas's permitting, licensing, and regulatory environment. There's also a permit guide by business type that has been produced, and really helps those small businesses figure out and navigate the business and permitting process. And then just a word about our economic development finance team. This is where, you know, programs like the Enterprise Fund are, and the Enterprise Zone program, but there's also programs for small businesses like the Product Development and Small Business Incubator Fund. So for those manufacturers that are requiring or looking, you know, to buy more equipment, this is a loan program that small businesses can utilize. And then from a tourism standpoint, you know, Texas is great at attracting a lot of events, especially in the North Texas area. And so the Event Trust Fund program is a program that's utilized by communities and by convention and visitors bureaus to help bring those events to the state of Texas. So just some Texas stats, sort of what we've seen this year. Of course, you all know the economic strength of the state of Texas, the leader in terms of jobs creation in the nation's top exporter for 18 years in a row, the second largest civilian workforce in the country. And, you know, the statistic that we see a lot now, we are the 9th largest economy in the world if Texas was its own country, which we used to be. And so that is, you know, of course, a very impressive statistic for our state, and we like to brag about that a lot. But, you know, as we say, it ain't bragging if it's true. We do receive a lot of awards and accolades from different publications. Chief Executive Magazine has named Texas the best state for business for 16 years in a row. Business Facility named us the State of the Year in 2019. In 2020, we received Area Development Magazine's Gold Shovel Award. And Site Selection Magazine, we've won the Governor's Cup for 8 years in a row. And so a lot of different awards and accolades that Texas receives. In terms of Fortune 500 companies in Texas, in 2020, we're home to 50, which puts us at number 3 in the country. But recent announcements during 2020 actually have us at 54, so tied with New York for the most Fortune 500 companies in the United States. Of course, Fortune hasn't come out with their 2021 list, and, you know, companies come on and come off. But as of right now, the recent relocations we had at the end of 2020 included headquarter announcements for CBRE, Oracle, Hewlett Packard Enterprise, and Charles Schwab. So very excited with those announcements. And the target industry clusters that we're working to attract and to grow in the state. Here's a list of what we're working on: advanced manufacturing, aerospace, aviation and defense, biotech and life sciences, information technology, petroleum refining and chemical products, energy, not just oil and gas, but renewable energies and new energies as well, and corporate operations. So a word about, our response to COVID and the impact that that's had. Governor Abbott's first priority has been the health and safety of all Texans during this event. There's a series of things that he did early on to help the state and to help our businesses. The governor's plan to open Texas, he put together a strike force that included some medical personnel, and I was honored to be a member of that strike force, to think about how to safely and strategically balance opening the state's economy, protecting lives and livelihoods of people. And that actually led to a lot of interest from companies all over that were intrigued with sort of this common sense approach. But some of the things that our office did, and I mentioned the small business office, really pivoted and changed what they did. Small businesses were impacted so significantly. We started doing regular e-newsletter updates. We shifted to a webinar series, more than 22,000 registrants for 15 webinars, and developed a COVID-19 resource page for our communities and for our industry partners to be able to share the information that we were getting. Because as you remember, when PPP came out, that was changing at such a rapid pace. We were certainly working hard to keep up with that information. There were some, of course, downturns to our economy, but we are seeing that come back up. Hospitality, of course, was one of the industries that was hit the hardest in terms of job losses, but we are seeing leisure and hospitality come back up. The Texas unemployment rate right now, of course, at the height was at 13.5%. We're back to 8.1% in November. And we had, significant unemployment claims filed in Texas, especially at the height of the pandemic in March and April. But we are seeing some positive outlooks in terms of manufacturing. So this shows you the steep decline in March, April, and then coming back up over the summer. And we've had some stops and starts. It's down a little bit right now in November, but it has, for the most part, come back to where it was. The service sector outlook as well, similarly, you see that steep decline coming back up. And then the retail outlook, a little bit more volatile. We've seen really high increases over the summer and then declines as sort of different capacity limitations have been put in place. And then from a travel industry perspective, the dotted line is 2019 data and the solid line is 2020. So we can see, of course, a very significant decline in March and then slowly coming back, not to where we were before, but we're hopeful as the vaccines roll out and as people are getting vaccinated, that will start to look more positive. So as I was mentioning, the governor's strategy to go about reopening the state in a safe and very methodical way led to a lot of interest from companies. And we like to refer to that "gone to Texas" phrase from the 1800s when so many migrants relocated to Texas. But just to give you an idea of what we have in the pipeline, so a lot of general manufacturing, but we do have some corporate service operations. This just kind of shows you the industries that are looking at the state, and this is the first quarter of our fiscal year of 2021. And we have, currently about 228 projects in our pipeline. So you can see pre-pandemic, pre-February 2020, we would have about 35, 37 active prospects reaching out to us per quarter, and that has doubled since the start of the pandemic, which was something surprising to us. In 2020, we had more than 800 new projects announced across the state, not just the projects that the governor's office worked, but those that were worked with our community partners, more than $12.9 billion in investment and 44,000 jobs. including numerous announcements from California companies. And this is just some of the logos of some of the announcements that we had in 2020, despite the difficulties of the year. Some are existing Texas companies that expanded, and some are new companies. Of course, the Tesla announcement was a huge one, and the Austin Chamber won the Deal of the Year from Business Facilities Magazine for that. And so we're fortunate that we're continuing to see a lot of activity. We're continuing to be very busy, and that is the end of my portion of the program. I'm going to stop sharing and turn it over to the rest of the panel.
Adriana, thank you so much. I mean, I'll make a brief comment. I didn't expect to see that much growth during a pandemic. And I know we have questions coming after the rest of the panelists, but wow, they look like great numbers so far for the state of Texas. Thank you so much for that data and information. Next, we're going to go ahead and move on with Janie Havel. She is with the North Texas Regional. She is the North Texas Regional Representative for the Office of Governor Greg Abbott. Janie, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much, Maureen, for having me. I am very fortunate to work for the state of Texas and with Adriana Cruz during this pandemic when we have seen so much change affect our regions. I represent the North Texas region. I would like to share, I have just a map of our territories. There are 5 of us in the state, and you can see how the state is divided. I serve North Texas, so from Abilene to all the way to Texarkana. So my office is in the Arlington area, so I have visited Granbury quite a bit. I have been in this region for almost 14 years, and we work as liaisons with our communities and with other state agencies and some federal agencies as well. We have done economic development small business summits. We've done small business workshops. We've done economic development workshops in and around our communities. You may have participated in a small business forum that we did in Weatherford a couple of years ago. I feel a little like Rip Van Winkle because I feel like last year was a little bit lost and I woke up and I don't know I can't keep track of time anymore. But so we work as liaisons with our communities and with other agencies. I've worked with the U.S. Department of Agriculture as well as our local Department of Agriculture, and we visit a lot of our communities right now virtually, but previously we have gotten together and helped them do workshops, specifically business retention and expansion workshops. We focus a great deal in the media about all the new business that comes to Texas, but business retention and expansion is also a very important part of Governor Abbott's goals. Not just attracting the new business, but making sure the businesses that we have that are already here in Texas remain happy and continue to expand and grow. That is especially true here in the Metroplex, where some of the smaller companies are definitely being approached by our neighbors about possibly relocating to Oklahoma or Arkansas or Louisiana. So we really want to focus on retaining those businesses and making sure that they're happy with everything that's going on and in communication with us at all times on how we can continue to make Texas more business friendly. In addition to working with our communities, because there are 5 of us, there are only 5 of us around the state that are not located in Austin. We are we like to say the heels on the ground because we're all ladies. So while we wear boots, they're usually boots with a little bit of heel. So we are out and about in the region, working to provide recognition certification from the governor's office, also ribbon cutting, that type of thing. Those are the types of things that we do around the state. And so I am here locally and here to assist in any way that I can.
Janie, fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing what you do here with us regionally. Next, I'm going to go ahead and move on to Shea Hopkins, who is Vice President of Economic Development with the Granbury Chamber of Commerce. Shea, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. And let me start with two things. First of all, wow, what an awesome panel to be a part of today of some really great women here in Texas. And number two, it's great to be in Texas. I continue to be blown away not only by the statistics of the state, but some of the stats that I'm going to share with you here locally. So thank y'all for that. And Janie, I've gotten to the privilege of working with you out in Abilene, Fort Worth, and now in Granbury. So you've been a great resource to me in each of those communities. So basically, hopefully most of the people on this call today know a little bit about what I do. And so basically, I am the point of contact for all economic development, not only for the city of Granbury, but also for Hood County. And the reason that being regional is so important in economic development is we all work together. And I respond to all the leads that I get from the state, from also the Dallas Regional Chamber, Fort Worth Regional Chamber, and then also anywhere else company direct. So I'm the point of contact for them. So I always call the chamber kind of the welcome mat to those companies. So that's what I've been working on, and I too have just been so pleasantly surprised with the amount of leads that we've been seeing. I think the state has sent out 4 leads just this week, which is unbelievable. And I feel like the size of the projects have been really big, so we're talking about 300, 400 employees looking for large tracts of land. So I feel like that's such a good sign that we're ready to move forward, that people see Texas as someone that's really going to come through this pandemic. Not only are we going to get back to where we were, but we're also going to thrive. And so I think that that's really something that you see echoed even in this region as well. The number of projects that we've seen have increased probably twofold as well. When I first transitioned from Fort Worth, and Adriana, I've been in this position almost the exact amount of time that you've been in yours. So I always say, man, what a wonderful first year I had been given. But I had been really surprised that coming from a major metro to a smaller region, the level of engagement and the level of projects that I'm seeing out here have been really impressive. And Janie, I'm glad you touched on the importance of BRE. Retaining the businesses that we have is key. And I always think that, people always think of the big new companies coming in when you mention economic development, but so much of economic development is really that support of your current companies and the addition of the jobs that you already have right here in your community. And so those are, again, some of my goals, just making sure that we retain the jobs that we have, and then we make sure that people know we're here and that we are open for business.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Shea. And last but certainly not least, we have Tammy Dooley from the City of Granbury, Director of Granbury's Convention and Visitors Bureau, Visit Granbury. Tammy, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Maureen, and I'm going to echo what Shea said. I just feel honored to sit on this panel, and Shea and I work so closely together, but I do so much of the exact same thing everybody on this panel is doing, but with the tourism aspect. So one of the big, I'm director of the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and I also oversee the conference center. So our mission is to generate tourism economic impact through leisure travel and through meeting travel. So last year, we're proud to say we won Best Historic Small Town in America for the 2nd year in a row. And Granbury is fastly becoming known as a event mecca. So whereas a lot of big cities, of course, have that designation, for us, for a city of our size to be able to have the number of events that we have here is amazing. So and I'll echo what Shea said. I never thought I would be a tourism director in the middle of a pandemic, but I just want to share some positive statistics with where we're at. So we were obviously affected. Our stakeholders were dramatically affected, but we've really held our own and done better than you could imagine. So a lot of cities have been affected negatively with their hotel occupancy tax. And in the end, we were only down about 20%. And that's a good barometer of how we're doing. So I think Granbury can be very proud of that. It's not where we wanted to be. We thought that 2020 would be the best year we had ever had on numbers for tourism. But to be able to say we were only down 20%, but all of the spin-off of that, such as sales tax and stuff, is doing very well. So it was mainly our hotel partners that were hit the hardest and our events. So the biggest question that I get asked right now is, where are we with events? So last year, we lost approximately 60 events in our community, and we had a lot of rescheduling and then a lot of postponing and then cancellations. But I just feel very positive that right now we have this vibe going on where right now we have not experienced any major event cancellations. So for 2021, of course, that's all predicated on what the mayor and the respectively the county judge can do with these events as we get closer. But typically our event season kicks off about mid-March. And we did have to displace the Goosebump Jump, which is a new lake event. But so far, all of our events are holding on. I think the events will look different. They'll be reinvented. They'll be hybrid events, but we've learned a lot in this pandemic for that. So we have about 10 major events that we're known for, like the Wine Walk, of course, our 4th of July celebration, General Granbury's birthday, Bulls on the Beach. That all is planning on happening based on approval and based on the numbers that are happening. But we also have about 5 major new events coming this year if we can make it happen. So we could talk about that later in the presentation if you'd like. We do have a couple of little announcements. And then I also just want to mention that this is our 150th birthday in Granbury. And last year, Lake Granbury celebrated its 50th birthday. So I think this is going to be a year of celebrations in that regard. And we are planning a festival, the Sesquicentennial Festival, for November. And then switching topics a little bit, we partner with Travel Texas so much, and we thank your office so much for everything you do, because we have done the Give a Gift of Texas, Travel Texas, all of those promotions, and we work hand in hand with you. Thank you so much. They really educate us and help us on a larger scale. But one of the trends we're seeing right now are staycations and recreational tourism. And the really good thing about that is our mayor and city council had been already, pushing that as our biggest promotion here. So that was all in the pipeline as we were coming into this pandemic. And so we're ready. So we are already far into the process, because there's such a shift in that with people staying in Airbnbs and bed and breakfast and stuff like that, that we're promoting our Segway tours, our hike and bike trails, our Lake Granbury. So Granbury's just in a really good place right now. It's not where we want to be, but we think that 2021 will come back, and it'll come back sooner than we're anticipating. So I could talk for hours. They've told me not to talk too long, so I'll wait until some questions come up. But thank you, Maureen, and thank you, Chamber. And I want to say thank you to Mike Scott too. We're going to miss him so much, but thank you for including me in this panel.
Thank you so much, Tammy. We appreciate the information you've given us already. Well, I'm excited to go ahead and share with everybody, all the panelists, some of the questions that came in from those who've registered for the luncheon. And what I'll go ahead and do is I'll read the questions out, and then whomever feels best poised to answer them, some are going to be, based more local, some might be based at a state level. So panelists, feel free to chime in and give us your answers on those. So the first question out of the gates, why is economic development good for existing businesses?
Well, that's a great question. I don't know, Shea, if you want to handle this, but you know, when economic development, and I think we've talked about this, but just to highlight it again, economic development is more than just, you know, an outside company moving into an area. That's what gets all the news, and that's what gets the headlines, and that's what everybody's excited about. But it's also the existing companies growing and being successful and hiring more people. So if you're talking about economic development, that's everything from, you know, tourism, visitors coming into your community, that's your entrepreneurs and your small businesses, that's your business retention and expansion program and those local companies growing, and the outside companies moving in. One of the things that we focus on is what's called the primary job sector. Primary jobs are jobs that are bringing in outside dollars into your community. So that's tourism, and that's you know, companies that are hiring people, and those companies' payrolls are coming from outside, you know, in. And that helps to create, you know, economic impact throughout the community. I know, you know, for me and some of my prior work, you know, people were like, well, why aren't you trying to bring in more retailers, or why aren't you trying to bring in more restaurants? And it's because retailers and restaurants are local dollars moving around the community, not outside dollars coming in. And that's how you grow an economy. So that's why it's important for the existing companies. The pie just becomes bigger. It's not smaller pieces of pie for everyone. It's just growing the pie, and the rising tide lifts all boats mentality. So as the economy grows, it helps everybody.
And I guess if I could, I would like to add just a couple of things to that. I think you're spot on with where this region is at. And, you know, for the most part, 72% of the people that live in Hood County drive outside of this community for work. And so for me, you know, one of my major goals was to bring those types of jobs back here, because I don't know about y'all, but wherever I work, that's where I eat lunch. That's where I run my errands. That's where I get my oil changed. All of these things that, you know, we see that business driving out of town each and every day. So if we're able to attract some of those jobs here, and we're able to get local people to work where they live, I think that you're really going to see an increase across all of the community. You're going to see it in the restaurants. You're going to see it, you know, even at, you know, daycares, all of those types of things. You're going to start to see all those dollars come back to the community. And secondly, I think too, on the attraction piece, when you see these companies come in and the people move here, you see an increase in home sales, you see an increase in car sales, you see all of those residual things that maybe you don't initially think about as bringing dollars into the community, coming back here and maybe retrieving some of those dollars that are currently spent in some of the more metro areas.
Fantastic. We'll move on to the second question. What types of businesses should we expect to see in Hood County?
I guess Shay's got all the great ones, so I'm not going to jump ahead of you, Shea, but we do have some exciting new tourism businesses too, and Shea can really tell you more about it, but I would like to just say, take the opportunity to say how great it is to work with economic development and see the benefit of even tourism business generating economic development. And Shea and I always say that you know, I spend a lot of time promoting a lot of leisure travel coming into Granbury on weekends, and Shea fills up the weekdays for me. So I just appreciate it, and there's a lot of overlapping, and we appreciate working together on both of those components. So you take it away, Shea.
Sure. No, and it's been so excellent working with Tammy and working with someone that truly understands how tourism and economic development are one and the same. And, you know, for so long, Granbury has kind of been seen as a tourism destination, which it still is and will still continue to be. So I'm just trying to fill in the gaps where I can. But I definitely see some more tourism type companies coming in the very near future. So hopefully we'll be able to announce some of those soon. But also we have a lot of the same goals that Adriana mentioned that the city has. You know, advanced manufacturing, I see being key for this market. I can see food manufacturers, I can see, consumer goods manufacturing being a really good fit. And then obviously aviation and aerospace are both really big for two reasons. We have a huge aviation community here, especially with the expansion of our airport, which I think that that's going to generate some great economic impact dollars in the near future. And then also we are right in the back door of Fort Worth, who has some of the largest aviation companies, in the state. So a lot of good things that I see in all of those sectors. And then also, we don't want to discount, there's a lot of really great entrepreneurial opportunities here as well. So I think, again, you're always thinking about these big, huge companies coming in, and hopefully we see a few of those too. But, I get just as excited about the company that's bringing in 20 or 30 employees that's going to be a really good fit for the community. So I think that there's a lot of options for what fits well here.
And that's really exciting because what's really important to an economy is diversification. So having a diverse industry base of large and small, tourism, manufacturing, office, like all different types, because when there's a downturn in one area, the other areas will keep the economy afloat. So that diversification is something that's really important.
Thank you. I'm going to jump into one of the questions that has come in through the chat box. Again, for those who are participating in the luncheon today, please feel free to submit your question in the chat box. We may have to condense it a bit, but we will keep the integrity of your questions. So please feel free to do so. This question comes from one of our participants today. I'm having a difficult time finding quality entry-level employees. This person mentions that it's kind of been made worse with the weekly stipends added to unemployment. We've heard that several times at the chamber. And this person has heard that many in the hospitality industry, this is kind of a widespread problem. So if any of our panelists have some advice on finding good quality entry-level employees, please feel free to share so. Or who employers can partner with to find them.
So I think that your local workforce development board is going to be a great resource and someone to reach out to. I mean, those workforce development boards not just help with training, but help with connecting employers with employees and with people looking for work. So I would definitely talk to the local board there.
I do have contact information for them. I'm sure Shea does as well. So we would be happy to share that with you if you have questions.
Fantastic. And then what we'll do also for these questions, if it does require follow-up, we'll go ahead. I have the name of who submitted the question, and we'll go ahead and we'll follow up with specific information for you. Here's another one that came in from our participants this afternoon. How do you think the work from home shift for some companies will affect Granbury? Some folks who work elsewhere may be able to live here without the commute. Are we seeing, what kind of trends are we seeing, and how are we seeing that affecting economic development?
Well, I can jump in there a little bit. I think that the work from home trend is going to be great for us. I used to joke that nobody lives in a major metro because they want to. They live there because that's where their job is. And so now we're kind of we're opening it up. We're giving people the opportunity to live where they want to live and still get to maintain the level of work that they have. So I think it's going to be wonderful for this community. I think that I always am polling all of my neighbors, which I'm sure they love, because I'm in a very growing new neighborhood. And I ask them, I'm like, hey, how do you live here? Where do you work? And I'm always blown away at the amount of people that have recently come from out of state and that also work from home. So I think that we're already seeing that shift. And I think that we're seeing it even with a lot of these requests for information and these leads, is that people are willing to be a little bit further outside of some of the metros, especially maybe companies from other states that have seen big shutdowns, I think that there's a little bit more of a comfort in some of these areas like ours, that they'll be able to remain open and that they still have access, to the workforce that they need. So I think that we're positioned perfectly for that.
Yeah, I agree. I think, quality of life is such an important determining factor in where companies want to be located and where their employees can be located. And so I think it's going to be a benefit, not just for Granbury, but for, the other smaller communities that are close to a major metro, but not necessarily, in the major metro, but have a high quality of life. Like all of those factors are something that's going to be a great asset for you all.
We started, I know at the chamber here, we started using the word, the buzzword microplex, kind of like we have all the wonderful amenities, that would be in a metroplex, but without all the,
without the headaches.
Yeah, exactly. So we kind of like to call Hood County the microplex. I'm going to go ahead. Oh, go ahead, Janie.
I'm sorry. We have also seen an increase in retail sales for our smaller communities than we expected, because more and more people are working from home. So they're staying there and definitely using, like, shopping local, and also utilizing this restaurants, and even local grocery stores have seen a huge increase for people who maybe didn't want to go all the way to a larger metropolitan area. And because they're working from home, they're able to access that locally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. This is somewhat along the same line, but we had a question come in. What are some of the advantages for smaller markets in attracting new businesses?
I can say an example that's happened recently. Sometimes the way that we're able to get things done a little quicker than some major metros has been an advantage. We have a lot of companies now that are wanting to be on rail. And so I'm so thankful that we have, several actually locations that still have great rail access, but it's not on a main line. And so instead of seeing that as a negative, it's actually been a huge positive, because it's so much easier to get a rail spur or to get things moving or get things going when you're not on some of the bigger major rail lines. And that happens quite often. We're able to shift and to move kind of at the speed of business, which has been really nice. So I think that that's been really advantageous for us as well.
Yeah, and I think in my experience prior to joining the governor's office, I was the president of a regional economic development organization in San Marcos, covering Hays and Caldwell County. And before that, I was at the Austin Chamber of Commerce. And, having a smaller community is definitely an asset in a lot of ways, as Shea mentioned, because you can move faster than some of the larger cities can do, and you have, there's a willingness to call special call meetings. The mayors and the city leadership are very involved and very engaged, and so all of that quick speed and nimbleness is just as important to companies as they're making decisions, and of course the business friendly and the welcoming climate that you all have. So I think all of those are great assets for you.
We've had a couple of when you just mentioned business friendly, Adriana, a couple of thank yous to the governor for keeping Texas open. So you can please pass that along from us.
Absolutely will.
I know that's very important. I mean, and Tammy, you can probably speak to that too. I mean, so many surrounding states, surrounding areas that have seen tighter restrictions and shutdowns. Being more business friendly, having a governor that understands that we've got to have our businesses open, it's probably been helpful in the tourism area as well, wouldn't you say, Tammy?
It has been, and everything has been reinvented. I mean, look at all the things, like we're talking about working from home, but look at all the curbside dining and pickup and event safety protocols where you can still have an event, but we move it to a location that's more suitable for the event, and the flow of traffic into that event, and hand washing stations, and watching the numbers of people coming in. So everything has just shifted. We've actually found out some great things over the last year. To make a long story short, one of the examples is for a long time, we had a lot of festivals that were centered around the courthouse square, which is beautiful and lovely. And, but it took away quite a few parking spaces. So because of the pandemic, we moved some of the events more over to the Langdon Center and on the plaza, and have had such great success that now a lot of those events are actually planning on being over there and then keeping the great parking on the downtown square. And parking being one of our issues because we have so many people here. So just being able to keep these businesses open in any way, you know, I'll take this opportunity to just say that when the pandemic began, we started a campaign called hashtag Granbury Love. And that campaign has just been so well received. And then our city manager, once we were several months into it, kind of had a vision to, you know, as far as the wearing a mask, we turned it into We Love Granbury, so we wear a mask, the hashtag Granbury Love campaign. So it has carried on through this pandemic, and we've been able to show our love by keeping a lot of businesses open. And so we appreciate that, especially tourism related businesses. So, and to this day, we're still continuing on with that, and we're getting ready to release a big campaign for Valentine's in Granbury with Granbury Love. So yes, we have to be open.
Okay, I'm going to keep it with you, Tammy, and everybody else, feel free to jump in if you'd like to also. But we had a viewer want to know, are we actually seeing events scheduled right now?
Absolutely. We just produced our 2021 event calendar. And at this point, we have had no major cancellations. Now, I say that the Lake Granbury Conference Center is a little bit different. And I have to give a shout out to my staff down at the Conference Center because they have just worked so hard to reschedule and recontract events, and then, you know, some of them had to cancel. So we are starting to see a couple of cancellations for some regional conferences at the Conference Center, but no citywide events. Plus, as I mentioned, we have like 5 major events coming this year. We have the Great Race event, which is a mega automobile race that we're partnering with the city of Crescent in June, and that is still all planning on happening. We have a great 6-weekend event of immersion theater at the Langdon Center, which will be a Sleepy Hollow experience, 6 weekends in a row, and we hope to attract a lot of the Metroplex visitors from there. So at this point, with approval and the right protocols in place, then we will be hosting events.
That's great news. Thank you, Tammy. All right, I'm gonna throw my colleague a hardball here. Shea, that's your get ready to bat here. We had a question, actually a couple of questions, and this is kind of a common question. I know, Shea, that, you know, we talk about this quite often, is sometimes the misunderstanding of kind of how the economic development process works. We have a lot of folks, you know, ask us at the chamber, okay, how come we don't hear about things throughout the process? How come we just kind of see things when they pop up on city council? So, you know me, I'm always going to keep it a positive, but tell us how the process works for those who might be concerned that they're not finding out everything every single step along the way. Why is it? How does the process work?
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you a little bit of my hearts and flowers answer is what I call it. So I always see, you know, everyone that's part of the economic development process, I feel like I'm entrusted with a lot of people's hopes and dreams. So when sometimes they come into this office, they might have a wonderful business idea, or they might be planning to move their business from a different location, and they're really trusting me to take care of that business. So most of the time when it's still in the process, they maybe haven't bought the building yet, or they haven't decided on the land that they want to purchase, or maybe they are even deciding between us and another location. And so the reason that a lot of that has to kind of be close hold is because it's not a done deal. So they don't want word out that they're planning on buying the building on the square because maybe someone else will swoop in and grab it. Or they maybe don't want their investors to know, or their current employees to know that they're moving out of New York to Texas because it might disrupt current production. And so I think that, we're never keeping secrets for the sake of keeping secrets. It's really more of trying to really protect those businesses and then also protect the people of this community, because I've seen so many times, and I'm sure that the other ladies on this panel can also say, but almost every community that I've been in, I've seen a loss of a project because maybe someone did leak information, or something came out that wasn't as positive and they decided to pull out. So I want to make sure that Hood County and Granbury gets that investment. So that's why I protect it. And then about 90% of the time, we're also required to sign non-disclosure agreements. So it's not even just me saying, I promise not to tell. It is also legally binding, that we've all agreed that, we're at a stage in the process where we need to keep all of that information close hold until it's a done deal and that everyone's ready to make those announcements. So,
Adriana and Janie, you probably both see that a lot at the state and regional levels. Do you care to chime in on that?
Absolutely. Shea's absolutely right. Many times we've signed a non-disclosure agreement, and so we can't talk about it. But also for these companies, it's a really, really important decision. I mean, it is a life-changing decision for that company, for their future, and for their employees. And so in some instances, the folks at headquarters, the current employees don't know that there's the potential that, the company could move from California or New York or Illinois or whatever and move to Texas. And so they have to be very careful about how they go about that decision and explain that to the employees. And for some of those employees, they may be coming with the company, they may not, they may choose not to come with the company for family reasons. And so it is, absolutely, talking about people's lives. And so we really respect what they ask us to do. And this is a very, very much a relationship business and a trust business. And that company is coming to us, or that consultant is coming to us and relying on our, trusting us and relying on our word. And so we have to be very honest, very forthcoming, but also really respect their wishes to keep information confidential.
Janie, anything to add at a regional level?
I can't think of anything else that can be added. I do want to echo what Shea was talking about production, especially in manufacturing. That can be very critical. If word gets out that a company is considering moving, their employees may decide to either leave, or if they're union, they may even consider a strike. So that really could affect their production. So it's definitely reasonable that they would want to keep that information as hush-hush as possible until they make their decision.
And economic development is a team sport. So this is not, the state sort of goes out on its own and does its thing. We really work with our community partners and our community economic development organizations, the chambers, et cetera, and we're partners. So we're partners in this. So Texas does economic development like no other state in the country, of course, because we're Texas, but it is very decentralized. The leads may come to the state and then we distribute them statewide. And then if the company says, okay, Granbury is the place I'm looking at, they work with the chamber, they work with Shea, and we take a step back. And it's not until Shea calls and says, hey, I need your help with this, or I need you to help me close this deal, then, we're all in. So, it's very much a team sport, and we're here to support you all in your efforts.
Thank you so much, Adriana. We also have another question come in from our viewers right now. Is there any additional money to offset the tourism losses due to the pandemic?
Well, the city has been so supportive in everything we're doing, but I can tell you we're funded through the hot tax. So we had about a 22% decrease last year. So we've just cut our budget and, made all the strides we can to not spend money that we're not going to have results with right now. I can tell you this, that we have an amazing city council, an amazing mayor that understand the value of tourism into the community. And so you don't start cutting the thing that's going to feed, the economy. So we've been really blessed. And I can say that the October and November numbers were actually slightly up. So we're looking like our numbers are going to be okay. So investing in tourism is a good investment for the overall community. And especially when we're talking about incentivizing groups and advertising and marketing to keep it going. So it would be the last thing you would want to cut into a community during a pandemic. That's a short answer.
Thank you, Tammy. Okay, we have one last question just come in. Do we have any new shopping or dining businesses coming this year?
Well, I think that is always the favorite question, and I can say yes, there are both of those things in the works right now. Whether we see all of those come to fruition within this first year, I'm not sure, but that's what is always exciting. Is I see this definitely as a growth market. And one of the things that actually really surprised me when I first moved here is the level of shopping and dining that we already have. Specifically because Granbury's 10,000, people, and then Hood County is 60,000 people. And, I think that we hit way above our range on what we offer. And so I was blown away at what's already here, but I probably get a phone call or an email at least once a week of a smaller business looking to locate here. And I don't spend the majority of my time on that because, as Adriana discussed earlier, those are kind of dollars that are already here that recirculate. But if I can ever help them, I make sure that I do. But I think that y'all will be pleasantly surprised at some of the things that y'all will see in the next year or so.
Thank you, Shea. Well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up at this time with our panelists. I do want to thank everybody. Adriana, Cruz, thank you so much for joining us. Please do pass along all the thank yous to the governor for keeping us open, for being business friendly, for understanding, the importance to everybody's livelihood. Thank you so much.
Of course, thank you. Thanks for the invitation. Janie, as she described, is the heels on the ground. Janie, I'm going to steal that. I'm going to use that from now on because I always introduce the regional reps as the boots on the ground, and that's not appropriate anymore. So the heels on the ground, but Janie is there to offer any support and assistance, and of course our office is as well. So feel free to reach out, and thanks for the invitation.
Thank you. Janie, thank you so much for joining us as well. We appreciate your regional aspect and information that you've given us. Tammy, Dooley, as always, thank you for the tourism update for not only Granbury, but Hood County and surrounding areas. Shea, thank you for joining us here from the Chamber on Economic Development for Hood County. I just want to remind everybody watching that thank you again to EECU for being our luncheon sponsor today. At 2 o'clock, we're going to go on Facebook Live on the Chamber's page, and we'll be doing a drawing with some great prizes that EECU has donated. So please be sure to join us at 2 o'clock on the Chamber's Facebook page. We do have some events coming up. I'll share those with you with the Chamber. On January 26th, we'll have a Women's in Business virtual event, and we'll be sure to follow us on social media. We'll have an update on that soon. On February 4th, we are going to show businesses how to reach Gen Z. It's going to be a Facebook Live event free of charge, and you'll want to tune in because I'm telling you that Gen Z market, they have consumer dollars that they are spending. So we will share with you the best way to reach them. And then, of course, on February 11th, we will have our virtual member link breakfast at 8 a.m. So be sure to sign up for that as well. Thank you to everybody who has joined us today for the first quarter luncheon. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to send them my way, maureen@granburychamber.com. I invite you to follow the Chamber on all of our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And thank you again to all of our panelists. Have a good afternoon.